my favorite thing to do is to stay home. I watch my stories. I eat a piece of chocolate cake. I got my dog Zoe Rabbit. Yeah, I know. You'd think the chocolate cake would start to put on the pound.
I was just going to say, I thought that was going right. You know, they say like a moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips. I thought you'd have asked for days with that.
Well, it's flourless though, Mike. And
okay.
Maybe it's the flour that takes it to the hips. I don't know. I'm not a chef. Ever thought about that? The word coffee and then the word coffee.
Ooh. Similar.
Like Chris is a very coffee person. He coughs a lot.
Yep.
He's coffee.
And we're off.
I always remember I had an English teacher that taught like English as a second language in high school who said for reasons like that, English is by far the hardest. It's like English and Mandarin are the two hardest languages to teach somebody.
Yeah. Well, you got all the THs and the silent letters.
Oh,
not
God
to mention
a PH.
Not to mention coffee. Like I'm a coffee drinker. Got a buddy who's a coffee cat. Two very different meanings.
You could have a coffee drinker and also a coffee drinker.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It contains multitudes.
And even English as a first language, we've got people walking around saying for all intensive purposes. Just showing their asses.
That's my favorite series of like tweets. I think it was like KFC or one of the guys from Barstool would always throw those up. Like people, instead of saying might as well, would say Midas whale.
Unbelievable. Most of you, like 60% of you, are writing the word phased incorrectly. There's no PH.
Every time I mess it up. It's like restaurant where I will never spell it right on the first try.
Watch this. RESTAURANT.
God damn.
But restaurant is a blind spot for a lot of people.
That's actually a bugaboo for me. That's like the word I always get wrong.
Yeah. That's fair. Hey, Mike Golic Jr. is our guest, host of GOJO with Mike Golic Jr. How'd you come up with the title for that show there?
Yeah,
Mike Golic Jr.?
Really original stuff there. I was asking them when we were going through, I was like, do you think the with Mike Golic Jr. is really necessary? But I guess it's also such an inside joke because the only people that ever called me GOJO were the Levitard Show guys, because the first time I filled in with them, Mike Ryan, who was their executive producer at the time, was the alpha Mike in the room. And so since we had two mics, we had to eliminate that problem where you say Mike and two heads turn. And so for some reason, they thought Golic Jr. shortened to GOJO. And so I guess they didn't want to take for granted that anyone would get that, because even saying it out loud now seems pretty involved.
Are you aware that it's the name of some anime character?
Yeah, that's the weird part is I'm actually kind of an anime guy and I haven't gotten to that one. But every time I would go to because, when you're getting ready to name something, you kind of give it the Google search. And people seem to love whoever this anime guy is.
GOJO is a cool name, generally speaking. Was there ever any thought in your childhood of being Michael?
So it's interesting. There's like every other person that I think is like a Mike or a Michael, the only time I ever get called that is either when I'm in trouble or my buddy's almost 2-year-old son, for some reason, only calls me by my government name. His parents don't call me that, but every time I go see him, it's Maku. So I don't know what it is about that age demographic, but yeah, no, never really gave that much thought. It was all I never had a nickname though. That's the thing. It was just Mike. No one ever even called me Junior, which that seems like it's a shot as dad. Like, step your weight up, get people to actually acknowledge you so much that they have to call me Junior.
Mike and I are going to talk about a lot of things. We're halfway to being friends. Chris is on vacation seemingly every other week here, so he's kind enough to hand off the microphone. I made friends last week, Mike, with Tate Frazier, College Hoops, and Randy Scott of SportsCenter fame. Ooh. And we had a good time. I was overly prepped. I was very nervous. I'm a nervy guy because we've had some interactions in the past, including a Waterboys charity event last year where I was an auctioneer. I was a co-auctioneer, and I was very nervous beforehand. And you told me in so many words as to go handle my business. And Now you can tell the people how exactly I did.
See, I was just going to say, I thought you did a great job. Like, you've got the delivery where every joke's going to pop because you've got that kind of like dry sense of humor. And I remember you did the smart thing. It's almost like prison yard rules where you walk up and you punch the biggest guy in the yard to set the tone. You immediately, I think, made a joke about Howie, if I'm remembering right. And that to me was like, all right, smart one there. Like, get a Skechers joke out of the way, liven up the crowd. So I thought you came in and hit all the right notes.
Thank you. Yeah, my co-auctioneer, I gave him a knock-knock. Didn't give him any heads up, but it was a knock-knock. Who's there? Howie. Howie who? Howie long do you think it'll take him to get up here? And his no touch Skechers slip-ins or something to that effect. And it worked. I didn't plant any laughs in the crowd, and it worked. But I will never forget your support in that moment. And I think this conversation here, wherever it leads, is going to result in a long-lasting friendship. Like, I'm texting with Tate and Randy this week, so just look out for that.
It's good to know that that's the standard we want to get to, because becoming phone number friends is a big step. Like, you and I have been exchanging some DMs. That was how we negotiated this appearance.
That's
and
right.
Once you take that step out, especially in like the sports media biz, that really seems to be like, okay, like this is different now. Now when something with, Virginia sports, or if I have questions about something you guys have on the pod, now I can fire you off a ha-ha text and we're yucking it up. So
exactly.
That's the goal. I can't be outdone by Randy Scott. I love Randy Scott to death, but I cannot let him beat me.
Tate texted, we're finally out of the DMs, like all caps. That was the first text. And then I hit him back with Andy Dufresne and Shawshank looking up through the rain like, oh yeah, I'm finally out of the muck. Here we are.
Oh, see, you know what? Now you've got the wheels spinning in my head about what my like intro text is going to be, because that's a great gift for that. I always think of a song though when it comes to like liberation, because when we were in the middle of training camp, every time we would get out of like the worst parts of it, I would walk into the locker room and the song Never Would Have Made It by Marvin Sapp would be playing. And so I feel like just texting you maybe a screen grab of that, because, who would have thought we would have made it out of the DMs and into text messaging? At least I hope.
Mike, I had a physical this morning at the doctor's office where one has a physical. Sure. And so they let me keep my shoes on. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. I kept my shoes on, and maybe I wouldn't have wanted to, because now there are going to be people asking questions. But it was 6'4.5". Now, two things that I've never figured out. I'm 36 years old. I haven't figured out breakfast, and I haven't figured out shoes. So I walk around every day selling real estate in boat shoes. Little docksiders, but I wear socks with them. Like, it's a really weird vibe. I don't want to go sneakers because people aren't trusting me with the biggest investment of their lives. And I don't always want to go dress shoes because they're wildly uncomfortable. At any rate, I asked the guys how thick the sole was. They said ½ inch, no more than ½ inch. So 6'4". They got me at 175.6. That's pounds.
How do we feel about that? That's usually the sticking point number for everybody.
Great question. Not great. I would love to be 190. That's not realistic.
Oh, so you want to add beef. That's your thing.
Yeah.
You feel like you're on the lighter side. Okay, so we're coming to the doctor's appointment experience from two different sides here.
Yeah. I would love to be a thick boy, but like a hot thick boy.
Sure.
I've got the body of a 12-year-old boy. And I could stand to put on 10 to 15. The 15 is just never going to happen. 185, I think, is within reason, but I need to eat more. I have a buddy who's tried to get me on a workout. The kids, I love my kids, Mike. The kids are kind of taking the workout time away from my life at present. But I got this buddy who says, do the things, but I don't really care how much weight you're lifting. You have to eat more. You have to eat a lot more than you're eating. And I've just never done that.
See, I feel like that's the part that, because I don't understand how anyone gets anything done with kids. As a single father of none, I am already like, I don't feel like I have enough hours in the day. And I watch my brother, who's got an 8-month-old right now, and see how that has changed his world so drastically. And I'm in awe. Like, if I were ever to run for public office, I would run on the platform of once parents get to the airport, they don't ever have to pay for anything. Because they're in hell. You're all in hell once you step on the airport property. But that being said, I think in the workout problem, because workout time's cut down, the eating, like, I feel like I'm sure Chris had to gain weight for a while. I feel like he's got a bunch of the tips and tricks. You know, you cover everything in olive oil, you add heavy whipping cream to stuff. Like, there's all those little life hacks to sneak in some calories and try and get you to, like, instead of a 12-year-old boy, a thick 12-year-old boy.
Chris also will walk in here and just eat handfuls of spinach. He'll have a bag of baby spinach.
Is he fucking
and he'll just
Popeye?
grab a handful and put it into his mouth. So you're probably right in that he has some hacks, but I don't know if he will have written the gospel on this. He played at about 272 and is now closer to 250 in real life.
Damn, that's where I want to live. When I went to my physical, it was humbling. So when I played my last year, I went to training camp with the New Orleans Saints, and I ate way too much New Orleans food. I had been like a 290 to 300 guy my whole life, and then there was like a 312, 315 guy by the end, and learned what triglycerides were and that my blood had way too many of them. And so coming off of that, I was like, all right, got to drop a bunch of weight. I got down into like the 250s for my brother's wedding like 4 years ago. And now I went back and I was 268. So like, I'm a solid blocking tight end at this point, and I need to get to more of a pass catching tight end. And I have the opposite problem where I've started eating to try and put on muscle again. And it's a lot of fun. And I miss just getting to eat a shit ton of calories with no remorse. But there should be a lot of remorse now because I am 33 and need to be a responsible adult.
Let's talk Spanx. Spanx could have come up at any moment, but I cede the floor to you. You put on Man Spanx and tell us how it went.
Yeah, I realized after I sent it too, like maybe I'd finally gone too far, because my dad was on air from the time I was like 11 or 12 years old. And so everything we did, like my dad told us straight up, if it's funny, we're talking about it on air. You're just little content factories. That's all you are. And so I think I got too comfortable constantly sharing stuff. And so I posted that picture, and like my family did not know I was doing that. And so all of a sudden my sister fires the picture of me and Spanx from Twitter into the group chat and is like, what the hell's wrong with you? And then my mom is like, wait a minute, is that online? Like, when they're shocked, considering we all came up the same way, I realized I went too far. But no, it's a classic case of like Twitter ads getting to me and me thinking, oh, this would be fun. I am a thick boy. I feel like this is something that could benefit other thick boys. But when I knew it was going to be interesting because it showed up in like a nondescript plastic bag with no words on it other than Chinese letters. That was all that was on it. And it smelled very chemically, so I gave it a wash beforehand to make sure.
Good. Yeah. I can see something like that coming in the mail and just being so excited that you jump right in. What size did you order?
So I ordered, and this is where I really messed up. So I'm an XL for most things now. And I ordered an XL for that, forgetting that it's probably not sized for like, people of our height. So like 6'4" and as wide as I am messed up the math on this. So I went to put it on and I went to hike it up. And as I was later talking to some women that I'm friends with, Spanx are kind of supposed to go up to your bust line. And this one for me went up maybe like 3 inches past the belly button. So it just sawed my gut in half, made me look like a garbage bag that was overflowing, and then gave me a stomach ache. So sizing was the issue.
Where are the Spanx currently? Will they be worn a second time? Do they serve any utility?
No, I think at this point it's going to be strictly comedic value if those get busted out again. Because I tried to even put on clothes. Like I was getting ready to go out to dinner. And so I put on, like my Lulu slacks and a button down and tried to do the with or without. There was no difference. Like none. There was absolutely no difference. So they're ready to get another wash because I did, trying to be an influencer, sweat my ass off a little bit in them. So they need to kind of go through it again.
Talk to me about Lulu slacks. Slacks may also be a blind spot for me. Yeah, but bonobos, you heard of this, Mike?
Oh, yeah.
They've been pretty good to me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe slacks is a bit disingenuous. Like they're the Lulu ABC pants. What they look like dress pants. And for someone like me who doesn't like wearing dress pants for fear of just tearing them completely down, I got flexible hips. And so sometimes when I bend over to get stuff, I forget there's also the ass back there and I rip a lot of pants. And so the Lulu's unstoppable. They're a beast. If you live your life in slacks a fair amount, they are a worthwhile investment.
Yeah, Matt's pulled them up. They are sharp looking. With my babies at home, I'm a pretty clean eater, but you start to just take what you can get. Time is money, and if there are chicken nuggets left over, they're chicken nuggets left over. So I was a little bit surprised that I haven't gained any weight in the last year. We're holding steady at 175. I want to talk to you about breakfast. Now, I approached Chris with an idea where every guest we ever had on, we would ask what they eat for breakfast, and then we would chronicle it with professional photography, good looking picture of the guest. And it's like a coffee table book about what people eat for breakfast. And that's trademarked. Unfortunately, you can't take it. Nobody else can either because I just said that. I think it's a brilliant idea. And yet I can't stick to a breakfast. The only thing where I notice weight stays on is during oatmeal phase. And with oatmeal, I'll get the Bob's Red Mill. I'll put it on the stovetop, put the water in there, and then I'll add flaxseed because I'll pretend to be healthy, and those chia pet seeds or whatever the hell, and a little bit of fruit, some banana, some blueberries. But that's when I start to feel unhealthy because I'm not exercising. I think if you're exercising, oatmeal can be a good base. For me, it doesn't work. Talk to me about your breakfast. I'm going to go through some of my history with that particular meal.
Okay, yeah, I like the oatmeal. Like oatmeal's if I'm feeling, because you're a better man than me doing it on the stovetop. I microwave that thing. Like, yeah, it just, I am who I am. I understand I'm probably knocking out some of the health benefits, but like you said, you get to throw some blueberries or some bananas in there. You feel very artsy. I generally like that, but my breakfast, like I kind of Steve Jobs this thing a while ago where it's just easy for me to go on autopilot and do almost the same thing every day. So the base is usually some form of egg white omelet and then a couple of pieces of toast. That's kind of where I've lived. Sometimes I'll throw in like a yogurt in there. Sometimes I'll throw in a banana with a little bit of peanut butter, but more often than not, the base is just, egg whites out of a carton and then a couple of pieces of like wheat toast.
Okay, hold on. Egg whites out of a carton. We might need to talk about egg whites for a second. Mike, what would you say are egg whites?
What are they?
Yeah, let's say, for instance, I want to make an egg white omelet. Walk me through that.
So it's the little carton of all of the parts of the egg minus the yolk, and you just pour them into the pan. Let them get a little hot, throw them in, throw whatever you want in there. I usually go some like cut up bell peppers, whatever leftover like meat I've got in there. So sometimes it's like ground chicken, sometimes it's other stuff. Throw that in there, a little bit of spinach, a little bit of cheese, fold it over. Then you get to do the flip, which I stole this, like many other things in my life, directly from my dad. Because during the pandemic, he got in this big omelet phase, and he was so excited, made a big show about it for my mom every morning when he would be over in the kitchen and he'd hit the flip in the pan. And I used to think, oh man, Dad's being silly. No, unique satisfaction. Even when you don't have an audience, when you stick the landing on that thing, it's phenomenal. And on the off chance you mess it up, now you just got scrambled eggs. Life's not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I've recently discovered hard-boiled eggs, which is going to be different than egg whites. Hard-boiled eggs, you don't even need to make those suckers yourself. They'll put them in bags these days, your Whole Foods, your Trader Joe's, and then you can just eat them. Here's a trick, Mike. Here's a trick. You lay out a little paper towel, you put some salt and pepper on it, and then you roll a hard-boiled egg on it.
Ooh, yeah.
Boom, you got yourself a meal.
Dude, hard-boiled eggs, slept on. An
Yeah.
absolutely delicious treat. And like you said, I used to have, it was called like campfire dusting or something. It was basically just like mixed up salt and pepper with like a little bit of garlic powder in there also. Just throw those on top of it. Really not. The only reason that like I bring egg whites into the equation is because, again, like 2 or 3 doctor's visits ago, they're like, hey, you got like a family thing, just naturally high bad cholesterol, so maybe cut out some of the egg yolks. And so I took that opportunity for breakfast, also a little acid refluxy. So I'm just trying to fight the good fight for, the stuff in here.
My blood pressure, what's the word? Pressure line is 110/68 and has been exactly 110/68 for my last 5 physicals. Doctor was blown away. Some sort of medical marvel. That's neither here nor there. All right. I often do the banana into the Greek yogurt.
Yep.
I'll do the banana into the almond butter. And I've even dabbled with the intermittent fasting, whether intentionally or not. I won't eat in the morning, and then I'll keep that going for a few days. I'll drink the shot of espresso as I do every morning.
Okay.
But I found that can be satiating, whereas the banana on its own, then I'm hungry 90 minutes later.
It's all a mental game.
Yeah.
Because I'm with you, like the intermittent fasting, people's like adulthood part of it is just accidentally finding yourself fasting. Because like you said, you get up, you got kids, you're doing a bunch of stuff, and you just forget to eat. And it makes the caffeine, that first dose, hit a little bit harder. The espresso shot is some grown folk stuff. Like I basically just go black cold brew every morning. Sometimes I'll mix in a hot coffee when I'm lazy, but the espresso, you're about business. I appreciate that.
Yeah. You know I am. This is a little touchy, Mike. Because GOJO is brought to us by DraftKings. Do you gamble money on sports?
I do, as from time to time. I know I don't think I'm as deep in the game as you, though. Like, I know you really like to, branch off from some non-traditionals and really get into the weeds on this stuff. So I think I got some ways to go before I ascend to your heights.
Here's what's happening. And by the way, I can feel myself. I'm being performative with Mike. Why can't I ever be myself we need to talk about podcasting. Why can't I just relax and be me? Why do I have to put the clown paint on and this weird affected voice? And why can't we just talk normally?
It's hard, especially in the hosting chair. Like, I love being a podcast guest like this because I'm just following your lead. You've got to have this idea in your head of where you want stuff to go. You've got to set up and provide context. You've got all the hard stuff. And like, that's what I normally do on mine. And I catch myself doing the same thing from time to time. It's hard because you put on podcast voice. Like, you would appreciate this. My best friend from back home that I went to high school with is a realtor in West Hartford, Connecticut. And when we would go to the gym or be out at dinner, I would always give him shit because whenever he would get a call from a client, he would put on what I called his real estate voice, would immediately snap into it where it's, oh, hey, hello, how are you? Like, everything softens. And I feel like we get a case of podcast voice. I totally understand.
I don't want to say that I'm a better realtor than your boy, but I will say that my real estate voice is my normal default voice. This podcast voice is different. And I think it's because I have a complex about not being interesting, which may not be a complex and just be real. And I've said this now on every single show I've done that where Chris hasn't been here, but I just don't speak well extemporaneously, big word, because I like to think about what I'm about to say. I can't just go. And yet that's what we're trying to do. I'm circling back to gambling money on sports. How in the hell are you doing 5 podcasts a week? Is it still 5, you and Brandon?
Yeah, it's 5. But like, I always tell people, like, how you come to it matters. Like, what did you guys start off doing as far as podcasts a week?
It was only 4 years ago, and yet I couldn't tell you. 2, maybe? 2, I think.
Like, I came to this from doing sports talk radio 5 days a week for 4 hours a day for the last 5 years of my life. So doing an hour and a half podcast every day on my own schedule, it's like when you take the donut off the bat in the batter circle. Like, I get to swing a little freer now. And I only have to talk about things once. Like, compared to that, it's a lot easier lift day to day, even if it's like still different in a lot of ways.
Yeah. content? Ever searching for content? Are you leaning on the guest? Are you ever at a loss for words?
That's where, like, and you and Chris know a lot about this. Like, that's where having Brandon there is really helped. Like, going to do a new thing, to be able to do it with a guy that I've known since I was 17, and like, we were in the same major at Notre Dame, so for 3 years we had all the same classes every day. In addition to all the football stuff, we did a lot of the behind the, so we were just together all the time. And I know him well enough to where even if there's like maybe a lighter day content wise, he's always good to say something I never could have imagined. Like, all of my mom's favorite moments on the podcast are things that Brandon has said. It has nothing to do with what her own son's done. It's all funny shit he's said. So yeah, part of that's the guests, part of that's, and also it's like, we got the freedom. If we want to cut it short a little bit one day, we just cut it short a little bit one day. There'll be a whole another hour for people tomorrow.
Have you guys gotten into a fight? Because shortly after you were here for the Waterboys event, Chris and I, we broke up. And I'm glad we've gotten back together. I said, hey, pal, I've sort of reached a wall here. I need a bit of a break. Everything's super, but we've just come out of the spring real estate market. Before that, we had just come out of the football season. I'd love to take a little bit of time. And to his credit, he said, all you need, all good. So that was a month. It turned into 3 months, in part because Chris went to Montana. Come to find out later, also in part to his resenting that I took a month off.
Oh, wow.
Well,
so wait,
yeah.
Is he on revenge vacation now? Is that what this is?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he said, see how it feels
Wow.
right now, where you don't have any Browns Bills to talk about week 13. See how that goes.
Man, really leaves you in the lion's den, or leave you in the trenches taking grenades, I believe is the line that I was looking for there. But I did think of you guys, because there wasn't like a fight that happened. It was, you needed time away, and then there was the resentment that followed that. There wasn't one like main moment, right?
For the most part, yes, but we had gone through a spell of being testy with each other.
Gotcha.
And I, like you and Brandon, Chris and I have known each other since we were 10 or 11 years old. I don't know. We know each other very well. We know where the buttons are located, and sometimes we can't help ourselves but push them. And we're also in the same room for several hours, a few days out of the week. And that's hard. Our personalities, we're very good friends, but for whatever reason, the kind of friends where absence makes the heart grow fonder, I think, sometimes.
Well, and it's tough too, the more you know someone. Like, I always found this when I was doing the show with my dad too, and I've noticed it with Brandon, where I'll get a lot more heated up and get back, because like when you have an argument in a locker room, like, it gets heated. You'll yell back and forth. Like, I've yelled with plenty of my best friends and arguing about dumb sports shit like we talk about on the podcast. And I always find myself getting a little more hopped up when it's my dad or when it's Brandon, because I know him so well. I know where a lot of this is coming from. And you come with 17 years, or in my dad's case, 33 years of like background and history together on some of this stuff. And you're a little more willing to be honest, like be blunt about it, than you would be with someone you just met who you're trying to like still feel out. You're kind of podcast dating them. So It is a little bit different. Brandon and I did have a moment at the Super Bowl that was, I think, our first fight since we started doing this. I thought of you guys, and I thought of that conversation with you and Chris at the Waterboys, because we were leaving Super Bowl opening night, Monday or Tuesday of Super Bowl week in Scottsdale, and it was over at the Footprint Center where the basketball teams play. And we went up after to the media food area up at the top of the arena. Like every sporting event you've ever been to, they've got the media like press box food set up there, and it was build your own taco station. Great. I just came off college football season. I'm a gigantic shit pig. I live for this. Free food. Let me get after it. And so I go up there, and I go through, I get my tacos, I come back over, I sit down to where Brandon was putting a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, all right, like I can watch the stuff if you want to go up there. And he said, oh no, I'm not eating that. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, Oh, no, it's out in the air and it's been picked over. I'm not eating that. I said, you're too good for the media food. I said, you work in the media and you're too good for the media food. And so then I was just like, all right, like this seems silly because you're going to be hungry, but okay. So then we leave, we go down to my car, and I was driving Brandon, and my parents live in Scottsdale. So I was going to drop him off at his hotel and then drive back to where my parents' house was. Bit of a hike, but again, my friend, love him, want to get him there safely. Like 5-10 minutes into the ride, once we've cleared there, he's like,
He's
hey,
hungry.
I need you to take me to In-N-Out Burger to get something to eat. I said, the fuck? I said, we had food there that you were too good for, and now you want to go to a fast food restaurant where you think the health standards are somehow markedly better than what we just dealt with over there. And so on principle, I didn't take him to In-N-Out Burger. I was petulant, and I took him to Culver's instead, which is still very good, but I thought it was closer and more on the way. It ended up being really far away and actually like fully cutting off my nose to spite my face. Got him his Culver's order, and the whole time was just beside myself because he had positioned himself as too good for the media food. I'm like, you're a former D lineman who works in the media. You can't be too good for the media food. And I admit I probably went a little overboard, but I was just, that was the moment for us.
That's funny. That's funny. Chris has always been worried about, genuinely, and I appreciate it, that the podcast would swallow the friendship, and we think at times it has, but we're also different people. Chris loves to be on the streets on a Saturday night, whereas I don't like to leave home. My favorite thing to do is to stay home. I watch my stories. I eat a piece of chocolate cake. I got my dog Zoe Rabbit. Yeah, I know. You'd think the chocolate cake would start to put on the pound.
I was just going to say, I thought that was going right. You know, they say like a moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips. I thought you'd have asked for days with that.
Well, it's flourless though, Mike. And
okay.
Maybe it's the flour that takes it to the hips. I don't know. I'm not a chef. But yeah, we're just, he and I are doing better about seeing each other in social situations outside the studio, and I think we're going to make it. But it was very funny that shortly after that event, we had to take a little break. Well, sometimes a relationship needs a little break. Segue. You ready for this? Mm-hmm. Gambling money on sports. So here's what happened. The podcast brilliantly gave me a little stipend, beginning of not this football season, but last. Here's some money. Use it to gamble on sports, and then you'll talk about it on the podcast. We're presented by WinBet. And so I did that, and then what happened was I became addicted to gambling. And I say that while towing a line, given our wonderful sponsor WinBet, because it's a lot of fun. It's so much fun. If it's a Wednesday night in March and you got some conference tournament final is surely tonight. And if you don't care about a Kennesaw State, which I happen to care about, you throw a couple of bucks on Kennesaw State and Abilene Christian. It's delightful. Now, where I got into trouble was, you're right. So I ran out of the money they gave me to play with, deposited a little bit more, ran out of that money, but then I decided to get it all back. So I deposited a bit more money. And once you know it, I won it all back via being disciplined, doing what I know, which is college hoops. And then I'm 60% on the NFL. So I got it all back. But then in some quiet moments, like you're waiting for the baby to clear the sleep out of her eyes, so you throw a few chickens on a tennis match that's going on the other side of the world, and wouldn't you know it, very quickly you lose all the money that you had won back. So I've taken a step back. I think it's great. Everything in moderation. It's a delightful service here to have a checking account linked directly to your cell phone that's then connected to about 10, 18 to 22-year-olds who knows what the hell's going on with them. Talk to me about your gambling on sports experience thus far.
Yeah, I think you hit on why it's having the moment and taking off the way it is. Because it's got the ability to make any game fun. Because not every game is fun, but gambling can make every game fun. Because all of a sudden now, like you said, there's stakes that I care about in this. And they could be like little, I think that's my favorite part is it can be the most random shit about the game, especially with all the parlays and stuff like that. You start rooting for really abstract things. You end up doing, like Katie Nolan, who is a friend of our podcast, always has the line that a lot of people turn recess into homework when it comes to sports in the way that we approach it. But if all of a sudden there's money on the line, you got to do a little bit of homework with some of the stuff you know. I was always influenced by a lot of the producers that I worked with in radio, who especially during the pandemic, there's no sports going on in America. The shit they gambled on during that time, because I think like Russia was still playing table tennis at the time in the wee hours in the morning when we were coming in, and, you know, like women's hockey and all this, like they just found whatever they could. And watching the passion during the show, like I'd be on air trying to talk, and you know, you got people in the room with you, you're kind of looking for feedback, and I would look at them and they'd be losing their minds, fist pumping and cheering, high-fiving, and I'm thinking I'm crushing it. And then I get to the break and I realize that one of them just hit a parlay and cashed in big time off said Russian table tennis or something of that ilk, and I realized, okay, this might be where things are going from here on out. So I'm like, I am where you were like a step and a half ago, where trying to stick to what I know, NFL, a little bit of college football, obviously have to, you know, work around because I called games on radio this fall, so never betting on games I'm calling or anything like that, but you
Smart.
You know, you don't want to go down that road, not trying to get Pete Rose from college football radio, which is a comparatively lesser Hall of Fame, but a Hall of Fame nonetheless that I'd like to keep myself eligible for. But I want to try and branch out more because this is really the first year where I've started doing it. And so like March Madness feels like the one place where it's easy to come in and just start throwing it around a little bit and have fun. Like the end of year going out of sale type situations to me are fun. Like the Super Bowl, I took everything I had left in my account on DraftKings and I found some way to bet all of it during the game.
Yeah.
I wanted everything riding on this one game, and it made it a freaking blast. So I want to try and work out that same sort of deal with March Madness, even though I haven't watched a ton of college basketball this year.
I would caution you with one thing, and it's built into what they call the tournament, March Madness. Okay, so the 6.5 point favorite that looks like a sure thing on the money line. No such thing during this NC2A tournament. Nothing I like more than December, January, February college basketball, where you can predict how these kids are going to react after a big win on a Saturday night followed by a letdown on a Monday night.
That's the best part about college sports too, is it's so much more like game theory and psychology than it is the actual like quality of the teams. Like you're looking at like, all right, like who's got finals this week? Who's coming off some sort of break? Who's had like an outbreak of the flu on their team? Like the NFL is actual skill on skill, and these guys are great at stuff. College kids are wild and unpredictable, and so when you find like the little pockets where you know shit's going on with their personal lives, then all of a sudden it becomes very easy to start to see where these upsets pop up. So I'm with you.
Make a plan, stick to it. We have the same initials. Those initials are MG. How have you found the initials MG to be throughout your life?
Pretty solid, I would say. When it comes to, so when I was a kid, I was obsessed with cursive. Loved writing in cursive. Spent a ton. Third grade was the year where you were supposed to learn cursive, and I was such a nerd that I would be on the bus like back half of second grade just practicing cursive because I wanted to hit the ground running. You don't have to get ready when you stay ready. I was a cursive all-star. And what I found out in writing my name in cursive a lot was the G, tons of fun. You can throw a ton of sass on that thing. The M, not nearly as much.
Oh, I might have to send you a couple pictures. So the G I've struggled with. This is going to be impossible podcasting, but I've done the big loop go down. It's kind of like a lowercase deal, and then you keep going. Yep. I've done the real old school cursive G that like our grandparents did, you know?
Oh, yeah.
That can look cool once you get it down. How many other I feel like I've had a G that looks a lot like an S. Had that for about a dozen years there. Through high school and college.
Mine kind of ends up looking like an L, if you can picture it, because I do that old school G you were talking about, but I hit it real short on the way up, big loop at the top, and then end up shortening the G at the bottom so it kind of swoops underneath. My college friends always used to make fun of me because, you know, when we're getting to college, you would do signings and stuff at the spring game, so you wanted to have kind of a consistent signature. So I'd be bored in class just writing it down because I'm extremely vain and I don't pay attention. And my teammates would always joke that it looked like my name was Marvin Lacey. And to this day, that's still what a lot of my friends will call me in our group chat. So
when I pull up Mike Golic's signature, it's your dad's. I don't have any idea what he's doing with his G. I see the Olic, but I do not see any sort of G. In fact, there's a little X in the middle of that G. That's a fun time. Go Google Mike Golic's signature.
My dad, and his is one I think I used to practice to like forge on school documents or something back in the day, or just because I was bored.
Also
his doesn't
smart.
make any sense. I don't know what he thought an M was at the beginning of his name, but I can assure you the thing that he tries to pass off as an M, that's not an M, not in any world.
Yeah, you're right. You have tattoos. Do you have a favorite tattoo? Do you have a least favorite tattoo? Have you covered up any tattoos with new tattoos?
So I'll start in reverse order. I've never covered up a tattoo with any new tattoos, but I have two that are my least favorite that serve as a reminder of the only true statement I know with tattoos. It was on a sign at the first tattoo shop I ever went to. It said, "No good tattoo is cheap and no cheap tattoo is good." So when I was in college at Notre Dame, it wasn't quite like the Ohio State like weird tattoo scandal, but there was a guy who tattooed us on the cheap. And because I was a very original 20-year-old in college, I thought, you know what? These pillars of my life, faith and family, those will be the things I tattoo in Old English on my biceps like a douchebag. And so on one side, what happened was, though, when you pay like $20 for a tattoo and they go in and do the whole thing with a outline needle instead of a shading needle, it heals like shit. And so on one side, I got it touched up. So the side that says faith, I got it fixed because I eventually got all these tattoos around it. On this side where I got family, you can see it still looks little and shitty. And so it's a constant reminder to myself of what a moron I was and how getting tattoos between 18 and 21, like if you can get out of a college sports locker room without getting a bad tattoo, you either have incredible self-control or more money than your peers. And I wonder now if all the NIL money coming in will increase the quality of the work done. Because the idea is it's still going to be like 900 prayer hands. Like you're going to see those a dime a dozens. I'm like everyone else and have a cross with wings on it because, again, I'm wholly unoriginal. So I've not covered any of them up. My favorite one is I got a beautiful woman on my forearm. That was the one where I finally like was an adult. I had money. I went to a place that, you know, was going to do a good job. The only like caveat with that one is there's a watch on it. And I don't know if you can see. It's supposed to be like a beautiful like chained watch, but on it, it says in like the digital font now, as in the time is now.
I get it.
So that wasn't my choice. This tattoo artist, like her whole deal was you kind of tell me your ideas. I'm the artist. I'll pick the imaging. I'm like, great. I would rather outsource this to you. You're a professional. Like this makes sense to me. And she really liked the watch with the time is now. And in my brain, I'm like, all right, well, I love the rest of the tattoo that she's done for me. And it's kind of hers too. Like it's her art hanging on me. And so if she really likes this, I feel like that'll be a concession I make. Until I realized that in addition to saying now when you read it downwards, it says Monday when you read it from my angle. And so it's like now is always Monday, which seems hellish.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Lots of questions. This woman, is this a specific woman or just a woman?
No, I have. I've done like the joke too, where I like tell you like if you ever see her, let me know type thing because you get asked that all the time. But no woman in particular. Just my tattoo artist literally said to me, "Hey, I do hands and faces really well. This is the biggest real estate on your body that you're tattooing right now on your arms. Do you want hands and faces?" I said, "Hell yeah, let's do it." Like
back when you said wholly unoriginal, you said here's a circle back to the English language. What you said was WHOLLY, but really it's also HOLY because you got God all over yourself with this faith business.
I know, and like that's the other weird part too is so I started getting tattoos when I was 19 or 18, something in that range. And you know, I'd gone to Catholic school my whole life. I was raised Catholic. I don't like totally like do religion anymore. And so I've got a bunch like I've got Mother Teresa words here. I got the winged cross. Like I got a bunch of religious stuff and I don't necessarily like believe in it the way I did anymore, which is fine because again, like my number one thing I tell people is make sure it looks good and it's done well, because if you're a human being and you're an adult and you're thinking, your beliefs might change a little bit over time. And so the work all looks nice and it was well done. And so I'm all cool with it, but it is just funny to look down and it's like, yeah, like, sure, maybe. Go off, Mother T.
And I hate to break it to you, I think that woman is actually Mary Magdalene, who is a very prominent figure in the Bible. So you've doubled down even more.
Yeah, I know. It's I couldn't run from it. Like even like the other side, I have so above the Notre Dame, the Basilica on campus, a big deal. Awesome building there. Great church, fun mass. And we used to have pregame mass there before every football game. And we would walk in from the side entrance. And above the side entrance, there's this big mural to all of the people from Notre Dame who lost their lives in World War I. And so there's like two eagles and these big crests. And so that's what I got. So even this other tattoo is actually from the side of a large religious building. I can't run from it.
Give us the state of Notre Dame. Mike Bray exited stage left last night, Tuesday night. Football program seems to be in good standing with Marcus Freeman. Lax Club, number 2 in the country. How are we feeling about the Irish? Are you aware? Are Notre Dame people aware that the rest of us don't really like Notre Dame?
Very aware.
Okay.
Very aware.
All right.
Yeah. And more often than not, we delight in that. Like you have no choice. You kind of have to embrace it. And so we're fully aware. And honestly, I kind of understand too. Like I get it. There's some things that we do that I don't always like either, especially from a fan base point of view. But I think we're generally good. Like women's basketball program back on track. Neil Ivey took over. She was an 01 national championship champion under Muffet McGraw. She took over, and now I think in year 3 for her. They've been great this year. Regular season ACC champs. Their 2 best players are out, so the tournament may not go the way we want to. Football's great. We've got, I think, the hottest head coach and quarterback combo in the history of college football. I think I can say that confidently with Sam Hartman and Marcus Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. When I think Notre Dame football, my brain hasn't clicked over to Sam Hartman yet. That kid is gorgeous.
It's unfair that now in this day and age, you're Sam Hartman on a college campus, and you already look like Sam Hartman. And like, I don't need to tell you, ACC guy, very familiar, Wake Forest, they've got an incredible pipeline to the Bachelor franchise from that school. They got 2 former Wake Forest football players that have wound up as contestants on the Bachelor. And so Sam was already tracking in a strong direction. He's got that rugged good look thing about him. Now he's on campus, and like, I don't know the specifics any of it, but I assume all these college quarterbacks now are getting NIL money. And so if you're making in the even 5-figure range as a college student and you're handsome, your life's got to be incredible around school. So between that and Marcus, who already made us as likable as we're going to get when it comes to Notre Dame football, I feel like we're in a really good spot with them as the foundation. Handsome as hell.
Yeah, agreed.
I do want you guys in Lax real bad, though. That's my roommate at Notre Dame my freshman year was a lacrosse player. I spent a lot of time with those guys on that team. I always wanted to be the first team, out west, quote unquote, west of the Mississippi to win a national title, and Denver robbed us of that. So I got to live with that. But this is our year. Like, this is Notre Dame season. This is a revenge tour for getting jobbed out of the tournament last year. The way they went about that was indefensible. They changed the process because Notre Dame was 100% a tournament team last year and got snuffed out of that in a way that I do not agree with. And now they are back on the revenge tour. Great goalie, Lynch, the face-off kid, is dialed in. We've never really had good face-off guys consistently in the past. You got 2 Kavanaughs down in the attack. We're a buzzsaw right now, and so
Is one of them named like Patty or something like that?
we have a Pat and we have a Chris.
Perfect.
Yeah, we got a Pat. Pat just had the game winner against Maryland this last weekend, so we got dogs. We got dogs in the house. We're ready to go.
I don't think you want any part of the nation's #1 country, the Virginia Cavaliers. But hey, think up some stakes. We'll make a wager on the game. We play late March. Who's Irish? Just think on it.
Done deal. I like this. This feels us. This is the beginning of our friendship right here. The foundation.
Speaking of us, Mike, The Last of Us is a TV show on HBO Max. It stars Pedro Pascal or something like that, Bella Ramsey. I don't like any sort of sci-fi. If it's not real, I don't want any part of it. And yet, I can't get enough of this thing. The whole fungus zombie thing isn't really that part of the. It's not crucial to the story, which is good. It's story. It's a character development show. Nice arcs, some high stakes. I also don't care about the video game part. What has been your take on a show that has only 1 episode left to go here? I'm sad to report.
I know. I've been talking to like my sister who watches it and a bunch of my friends. Everyone very sad. It's been incredible. And to your point, like, it's for anyone. I come from a background. I love zombie movies. I love sci-fi films. So all of that stuff massively appealing to me. I actually bought a PS5 to play this game. I haven't owned a game console since 2014. And now I'm playing along with this game just because anyone I talked to who had played it said it's one of the 5 best video games of all time. It is an incredible story, and they've done a really good job adapting it. But I think the apocalypse, or I guess the post-apocalypse in this case, is a really cool place to be able to tell human stories like you talked about. Because you've got this backdrop where everything's gone to shit, but somehow people are still making it work. You still got kids going to the mall to try and start their little love story there, like we saw 2 episodes ago. You had the Bill and Frank episode with Nick Offerman, where you had this whole love story that existed inside this world. And so I think it's a really interesting backdrop to be able to do these things. And I think they've done it really, really well.
Don't spoil it, but do you know what happens if you've played the video game?
I don't. So I started the video game after I started the show, and I decided I was only going to play in the video game as far as the show had gone. So
Genius.
I'm in the middle of playing the most recent episode right now and working through that, which is has been really hard so far. And I've heard it's the hardest boss in the game.
Yeah, well, with the pedophile and all, you know.
Man.
Can you lose? It's a video game. I would assume you can lose, and then do you go back to the beginning?
So, great question. They've kind of, and this was all a learning experience for me. Video games are basically movies now, where every once in a while you got to hit a couple buttons.
Yeah, I'm thinking of
Really,
like NHL '94 is where I am.
I'm the same way. Like Halo was big when I was in college, so that was my last real that and like Grand Theft Auto. This one, you don't really go back far. They save the points pretty quickly, and so when you die, which in my case is often, like the amount of times I've had a clicker give me a really big kiss, too many to count. They really mess you up. And I found out I can't play this game before bedtime either, because I made that mistake of doing it last week, and I was laying down in bed, and all I could hear was that clicker sound of them like roaring off in the distance, and I realized I may have flown too close to the sun. So the game's been awesome. It's been really a lot of fun, but I am also like terrible at it right now because I haven't played in so long.
Mike, I DM'd you about this. What if we tried to do something genuine here as we wrap up? Somebody in your past, a teacher, a coach, a mentor, who hasn't been given his or her flowers, who hasn't gotten the credit for the success of our guy GOJO. Can we highlight somebody? Can we lift somebody up today on the show?
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. And I think he's gotten credit, but I want to give him more. And it's just because he recently retired. So my old offensive line coach from Notre Dame, was a guy by the name of Harry Hiestand. He actually coached Kyle at the Chicago Bears for a little while, a few years back towards the end of Kyle's run there.
Great name.
Awesome. He's like the Madden create an offensive line coach. Super O-line coach name. When you see him, he's just stout, looks like he wants to hit somebody at all times. And he was my O-line coach for one season. I had 4 O-line coaches in 5 years at Notre Dame. Coach Hiestand was my very last one in my 5th year senior year, and it was the only year I was a full week 1 to end of the season starter, and he believed in me when very few other people did, gave me the opportunity to go out there and earn and keep the job, was honest with me when I was falling short of those things, and then you go through all of that with him. It was the hardest season of my life. He was the most demanding coach that I've ever played for. But truly, like, the way I talk about football now and the way that I approach working now are things that were deeply impacted by the kind of values he instilled in us in that room. Like, that shit mattered to him. The Notre Dame offensive line room mattered a lot to him. And, success-wise, he's the guy that, helped produce Zach Martin and Ronnie Stanley and Mike McGlinchey and Quentin Nelson and all these first-round draft picks for Notre Dame were Coach Hiestand coached guys. And I was never going to be one of those guys. Wasn't talented enough, wasn't good, all that stuff, but he got the best out of me. And even after that, when I'm trying to play pro ball, he went out of his way to write notes to coaches around the league with my highlight tape to try and help me get a foot back in the door. To this day, outside of my dad, there aren't a lot of men in my life who are as important to me from a mentorship standpoint as Coach Hiestand was. So I always said I could write the book on Coach Hiestand. That man's done a lot for me. And, usually when you've got an O-line room of his coach guys, you got a bunch of dudes that would step in front of a bullet for that guy. So Lord knows I would.
That's awesome. Big ups to Harry Hiestand. A cat whose name I didn't know, and now I do, and I'll never forget it. So good on you. Mike, we talked very little sports. I love that. Sometimes it's enough with the sports. You know what I'm saying?
Honestly.
We just need to get through height, weight, breakfast habits, etc. I appreciate you very much. Everybody go check out GOJO with Mike Golic Jr. You're really great about reminding the people to review and rate and subscribe and all that good sort of stuff. You, let me give you your flowers. You are the person, I'll never forget it, who told me that Steven Adams is 29 years old. I learned that. I'm a big research guy, went back through some GOJOs. 29 years old. You could have told me 38, and I would have believed you.
Steven Adams, I think, still might be my dad. I know he's 29, but he still might be my dad. So, yes,
Yeah.
That was mind-blowing.
He's only 6 years older than Ja. We don't need to get into the sports stuff. We'll do that.
It is crazy though. You heard about that players only meeting they said before,
Yeah.
Sham said they had. If Steven Adams telling you to act right can't get you to act right, he was the one that probably would have taken down Shannon Sharp if it really had it out with the Grizzlies. If that dude can't get you to scared straight, it's gonna take something wild.
I don't disagree. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you. Listen to GOJO. Mike and Brandon do a great job. We'll talk stakes of the lacrosse bet here in a little bit. Thanks, man.
I'll text you.
Okay. Yeah, text me. Text me. We're friends.
Listen to the full podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast streaming platforms. Wherever you want to get the podcast, you can get the podcast. Pretty simple. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Podcasts get pretty wild. This is real tame.